Welcome to Hospitality Internships, the premier global talent network.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lisa Cain, and I am an associate professor at the Chaplain School of Hospitality and Tourism Management at Florida International University and a co-founder of Hospitality Internships. It is my distinct privilege and pleasure to welcome you to this personal branding bootcamp session with two of my esteemed colleagues, Lourdes Gomez and Katherine Martin. Katherine Martin currently serves as the Assistant Director of Career Development in the Chaplain School of Hospitality and Tourism Management at FIU. Lourdes Gomez currently serves as Assistant Director for Career Development and Corporate Relations within the Career Development Office at the Chaplain School as well. Kathy and Lourdes, thank you for sharing your insights with us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cain, and thank you to everyone joining us on this lovely day. Again, as Dr. Cain mentioned, my name is Lourdes Gomez and my colleague's name is Katherine Martin, and we are here today with you to discuss some tips and a personal branding bootcamp to better prepare you for your career fair and your future careers.
Before we get started, just a quick little overview of what we're going to be talking with you guys about today. So obviously, you may not know who Lourdes and I are. So we're going to give you a quick little about us so you can kind of get to know who we are and why we're talking to you guys today. We're going to talk about something that's really important, which is your career tools. So there's 3 really important tools that you're going to be using, not only for the career fair, but throughout your career adventure. We're also going to talk about some tips to navigate the virtual career fair. And at the end, we're going to open up for anyone that has any questions for us. I am Katherine Martin. I currently serve as the Assistant Director for Career Development at the amazing Chaplain School of Hospitality and Tourism Management at FIU. I am a proud 2-time alumna from our school within hospitality management. I have a robust 21 years of hospitality experience. I say you name it, I've done it, tried it. So anything from cruise lines, airlines, property management, events and human resources, and higher education. And my fun fact is I have 2 amazing children. They will kill me if I don't say that. Just joking, they are. Alejandra and Annabella, and I absolutely hate cilantro and iced coffee. Please don't judge me.
And again, my name is Lourdes Gomez, and I currently serve as the Assistant Director of Corporate Relations and Career Development at FIU's wonderful Chaplain School of Hospitality and Tourism Management. Just like Kathy, I am a 2-time alum, and I earned my Bachelor of Science degree in Mass Communications with a focus on public relations and a Master of Science degree in Educational Leadership. Currently, I am pursuing my doctorate in adult education and human resource development, again, at FIU. Go Panthers. Like Kathy, I have also worked in the hospitality industry. I've been in the industry for about 19 years, and I have experience in various areas. And those areas include hotel operations, cruise lines, and human resources management, and now, of course, higher education. My fun fact is that I have 2 cats that I absolutely love and adore, and their names are Annie and Bowie, and they are named after famous musicians of the 80s, Annie Lennox and David Bowie, for those of you who like 80s music. So to get started, before the career fair actually happens, we want to give you some tips to be able to better prepare yourself, right? So first, you're going to want to have an updated resume and LinkedIn profile, which we will go into more detail on further along in our presentation. But first, you also want to make sure that you research the company and or organization that will be present at the career fair. And you're probably asking yourself, how do I do this? One of the ways that you can research any organization is by simply Googling the company. Google, as an example, if Marriott's going to be present, you can Google Marriott in the Google search, and up will come up their website, which then leads me to the company website. So if the organization does have an official company website, you want to make sure that you visit that website and do your research. You can also continue conducting your research through LinkedIn by keyword searching the name of the organization and following any articles that the company has posted on LinkedIn. In addition to that, if you want to know what it's like to work for the organization, there is a website called glassdoor.com in which you can type in the name of the organization and find reviews of past employees who have worked for that organization and or company, just to gather some insight on what it's like or what employees have said about working for that organization. Other things to keep in mind when researching the company is to look at their mission statement and values and culture, right? And why is that important? You want to make sure that the organization and or company that you are working for has an aligned value and culture that matches your own, right? You don't want to work for an organization that doesn't meet the values that you yourself have. So you want to make sure that you can make sure to research that information as well too. You can look at their mission statement, and that can give you a little bit of further insight as to what the company's goals are. In addition to that, you want to research some available positions before the fair, and that can be done using the company's website. You can use linkedin.com to look at available positions as well too. Lastly, which we'll further get into along in the presentation, is you want to make sure that you have an elevator pitch, which is basically a 30-second elevator pitch, or AKA your commercial, to be able to introduce yourself to these organizations. Another tip is you want to tailor your elevator pitch to the company and or positions that you are interested in.
So first things first, make sure you have the complete name of the school or program. We've seen that it's now becoming very trendy to kind of abbreviate the school name or the degrees. So for example, our school has a very long, amazing name, Florida International University, and then we have our program name. But we always encourage everyone, instead of writing FIU, go ahead and take the time to write out the full university's name. Also with your degrees, no BS or MS, go ahead and make sure that you write out the full degrees. As the same for your company names that you're working in. Make sure that your resume is in chronological order. So we want to start with the most recent experience that you're doing currently or you have completed currently, and then working your way back. Lourdes and I also get questions about how long do we keep work experience on there? Well, kind of there's two rules of thumb, 7 years, unless you have some great experience that is all aligned with what you're currently interested in pursuing. Now, if you're applying sometimes for like government positions, we say 10 years, but the little rule of thumb is about 7 years. Summary or objective, this always comes up. We say that if you want to have a summary, which is perfectly fine, make sure that it's very specific to what you're interested or what you're currently looking for. Or I say or we have worked with students sometimes that are making a full transition. So I had a student the other day, he was in the finance industry. He left that after 10 years to go explore the events and entertainment world. I said, yes, we should kind of go ahead and create a summary that goes ahead and acknowledges your amazing 10 years of finance, but then it specifies that you're ready to go into a new world of events or entertainment. Also awards, any leadership experience, and that does not just mean in a work, it could be for a student organization that you're in. Volunteer experience is also very valuable to showcase in your resume. Utilizing bullet points versus paragraphs. Paragraphs are a no-no. When people look at resumes, especially hiring managers or recruiters, you want to make the resume as eye-appealing and as easy as to read as possible. So I would say no paragraphs and use bullet points. Ideally 3 to 4, but it also depends on the amount of experience that you have. When you're creating those bullet points, you want to make sure that they highlight your accomplishments within your responsibilities. So tasks are very easy. There's no wow factor in a task, but it's much easier and better to highlight what you've brought to the table within your responsibilities by highlighting your accomplishments. And last but not least, of course, on the top of your resume, you're going to have your contact information. So a telephone number, your mobile, your email address. But one also essential link that you want to have there is your LinkedIn. 9 times out of 10, when the recruiter is done reviewing your resume, they go straight to your LinkedIn profile because they know in your LinkedIn is going to be able to showcase more of your experience, projects, and other great things that you've been doing.
So now that we know what to put on your resume, I am going to give you some tips on what not to do. So first, you want to make sure that if you are applying to a position, now this applies to positions that are within the United States. I would not suggest putting your picture, your date of birth, your height, marital status, and or religion. Now, again, this only applies to positions that are within the United States. If there are positions outside of the country, that differentiates. Obviously, each country has their own standards in terms of what is required And there are some countries that do require for you to put your picture, your date of birth, and that sort of information on there. So I would just say make sure for positions locally and within the US, this is not something that I would suggest you do. But again, outside of the United States, if it is a country that has the requirements, then go ahead and fill in the information based off of the requirements of that country that is requesting the information. In terms of high school information, it is suggested that you do not put this information on your resume. It's already implied that you've graduated from high school once you're at a university, so there is no need to put in that information. As Kathy mentioned, you do want to include the information of the university that you are attending and the program that you are involved in within the university. Also, do not list inaccurate information on your resume. You want to make sure everything that you have on your resume is true. You don't want to get caught in a lie. Make sure that all your dates are true and accurate. And that includes information on perhaps, let's say, when your expected graduation date is, when you've started positions, and when you've ended positions, right? And it's always good to be transparent with the employers and obviously with yourself too on your resume. In terms of the information, I would not list tasks. I would be more results and accomplishments driven on your resume, as Kathy was mentioning before. She said not to put paragraphs. We don't suggest that. But if there is, let's say, perhaps revenue that you have driven for the organization, or let's say you've made Employee of the Month, those are things that you want to go ahead and put on your resume and list as those types of accomplishments. In terms of references, we don't suggest putting references or references upon request on your resume. What we do suggest is having a separate sheet with that information, right? Which is perfectly fine. And another tidbit is to make sure that if you are going to put somebody on your reference, you make sure that you ask them for permission first. You don't want to catch them off guard by just entering in their information and them getting a phone call and not being aware that you've listed them as a reference. So do please make sure that if you are going to list, let's say, a past supervisor or manager, that you do ask them for permission prior to putting them on your references sheet. And again, just to reiterate, do not put that on your resume. You can have a separate sheet solely for references.
Next, the cover letter. Cover letters, Lourdes and I always suggest that you don't always have to submit them, but there are times that some companies do ask for you to submit them along with your application. But there is a little I say a little trick to it. Make it sweet, make it short and sweet. All right, I call it like an appetizer. So it should kind of appeal to the person who's reading it to say, okay, I gotta go over now, read to this resume. So again, what should we be writing on this resume? On this cover letter. So why are you writing to them? Where did you see this job posted? So for example, if you saw it in your college's job posting board, perfect, mention that. If you saw it in their career website, LinkedIn or so forth. You want to go ahead and highlight the position as well as what qualifications and skills and experiences do you have for this role. This is normally the full body of the cover letter. Ideally, I always tell everybody that when you're writing a cover letter and a resume, have the job description right to the right of it. It should be speaking almost the same language, right? So if they're telling you that they're looking for certain qualifications within this job description, you want to highlight those briefly in your cover letter. You can do that with actually highlighting the qualifications and experiences, or you can do it with also highlighting a couple of your accomplishments within your results that are going to show experience and also show your qualifications for this position. Also, at the end, you want to, of course, thank them for their time, but instead of putting, I hope to hear from you, no. You want to be a little bit more confident, do a little call to action and tell them, I believe that I can be an asset to your company and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Again, it's short and sweet. It's just giving them a little bit of information of who you are, how you found out about this, what experience or qualifications you have for this, and drawing their attention to the resume. Now, one of our last career tools is the LinkedIn profile. We tell everybody this is your branding website page, okay? Unlike your resume that's on a piece of paper, we're going to be relying on words and to sell you, right? The LinkedIn is amazing because it's a more visual appealing tool. So talking about visually appealing tool, Lourdes and I have this rule. We see a LinkedIn page with no picture, we already start looking at each other like, right? So what about this picture? What kind of picture should you have? Do you have to be in a suit and tie or professional attire? Not really. Your picture honestly should be tailored to the industry or the position that you're going into. So we have students that are going into various sectors of hospitality. I had a student who was really passionate about the beer brewing industry. And he says, Kathy, I don't want to be in a suit and tie. I want to be in like my little brew coat, my beer brewing coat. I said, wear it. And it fit him perfectly because when you saw the picture, read the summary, you can tell that this gentleman is passionate about brewing beer. Also, you can change up your background banner. Sometimes we have that blue background banner. You can play along with it. My passion and background was in training and development. So if you take a look at my LinkedIn profile, it's all great action words within the training and development world. You can also make a nice catchy headline specific to your area of passion, interest, and your, I would say, guru, or like your things that you are an expert at. So like event or marketing guru or something like that. So again, the whole point of it is that when someone's looking at this LinkedIn, you can be more personalized as to who you are, and this is what they're getting to know. One other part of that is the summary or your story. If I don't see a summary or story, I start to wonder as well, right? So you want to have a summary that tells the person, if they haven't got a chance to meet you, who you are, what you're currently doing. So for example, Lourdes is pursuing her amazing doctoral. So she definitely needs to highlight that on there, right? And then work experience, skills. If you're not looking for a job, you don't have to end with saying, I'm interested in pursuing or interested or looking for a job in the following. You can say, I'm continuing or furthering on my passion in higher education. But definitely you want to make sure you have a summary. Some other great things that you want to make sure that your summary has is education fills out, experience, skills that you know are your skills. And you can also show any certification. So a lot of times we're, continuing to sharpen our tools by getting certified in different areas, showcase those. You can actually upload the picture on there. Some last tips, LinkedIn is about networking. So if you're not building and networking with people, then you're not going to benefit from this actual platform. So rule of thumb, at least have 50 and be strategic. You should be connecting with individuals that are either in a position that you plan to one day, achieve to be in, or you would love to connect with them for mentorship, guidance, employment opportunities, but ideally they're within your group of the industry that you're in. Like we said, you can make this very visual appealing. So you can add pictures from projects, conferences that you have attended or participated in, career-related events. So we just wrapped up the South Beach Wine and Food Festival, and I tell all my event students that if I go to your LinkedIn page and I don't see these amazing pictures of you with the chefs and everything, I'm going to be wondering what happened, right? Why? Because if you're an event student, especially in mega events, this is something to showcase that you're not just studying it, but you're getting the experience in it as well. And last but not least, I say you got to give LinkedIn love, right? So how do we do that? You have to engage regularly. How do we do that? So if someone posts an article or something that they have done or research, comment on it. Or sometimes people start online discussions, so you can also participate on those online discussions. So this is a really great way to be able to not only have a complete LinkedIn profile that is strong, but also be able to participate in it as well.
And next, we're going to dive into your elevator pitch, right? So when you're presenting yourself to these employers and these partners, some really useful tips. Number 1, make eye contact. Number 2, smile. And number 3, be very confident with yourself. You can do it. You can speak to these employers. You have the ability and the capability and the confidence to be able to do so. Now, in terms of what to do and what an elevator pitch is composed of, first, you want to introduce yourself. And we have a little brief example that I'd like to use. So as an example, I would say, hi, my name is Lourdes Gomez, and I'm a graduate student pursuing my Doctor of Education with a focus in adult education and human resource development at Florida International University. You then want to kind of slowly dive into what position you're interested in and you're looking for within that organization. So again, going back to the research, you should have seen this position on their website or through their LinkedIn or wherever you may have done your research prior. So then I would follow up with saying, I'm interested in the training and development manager position that I saw posted on your Carnival Cruise Line's career website. Then you want to slowly transition to saying why you would be an asset for that organization. So then I would continue on in saying, I have a vast amount of knowledge and experience within human resources. I've done recruitment in my past organizations, and I have plenty of transferable skills that will make me an asset within your organization. I have great communication skills. I've conducted workshops on the following topics, and I am not afraid to speak in public, which are some of the skill sets that you need in order to be a successful training and development manager. Right? You then want to continue slowly going into offering your resume. So I have my resume available and I would love to share that information with you. What would be the best way for me to be able to express interest in this position? Do you have a website? May I email this to you? And that's when you can then dive into asking for the best way to contact them and or to follow up, whether that would be for a business card. Some individuals are now being very tech savvy with having QR codes. You can ask them for their QR code or even their LinkedIn profile link to connect with them on LinkedIn as an additional follow-up after you've presented yourself and after you're done. So those are just some useful tips when speaking to partners, recruiters, employers, managers for your elevator pitch. Now that you have your elevator pitch down, you want to make sure that you prepare for your virtual career fair experience. We have some useful tips for doing this. Number one, you want to make sure that your technology is working. So if you have a computer and you have a friend, perhaps maybe you could log in with them to make sure that your microphone is working, your camera is working before the event actually happens. You also want to make sure that you pick an appropriate background and or a quiet space that has no distractions prior to you attending your virtual career fair experience. You also want to avoid what we like to call the wallflower effect. And what that means is essentially you want to stand out. You don't want to just kind of stand there and not say anything. You want to make your presence known, obviously in a very professional manner. So you don't want to interrupt anyone. But when the opportunity arises, you want to make your presence known and introduce yourself again with those elevator 101 pitch tips that I had prior. You want to use strong, confident body language. There was an example that I was sharing earlier which is horrible. There were students who actually were laying on their bed speaking to the employers, and you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you're standing up straight, you have a professional background on you, and that you are not lying down. That is not something that you want to do. You also want to make sure that you use professional communication, whether that be verbal and or written. And again, going back, you want to create a list of those companies that you will focus on connecting with at your virtual career fair experience. Before you enter what's called the virtual room or the virtual space in which you'll be networking with these companies, you want to make sure that you already have your questions well prepared in advance. And you can, again, tailor these questions to the companies that you're meeting with. You may have different questions for different companies, and that's perfectly fine. And lastly, you want to avoid asking questions that can have already been easily answered online. So just to give you an example, if there's a salary that's already posted for a position that you are interested in online, if you did your research, you would have this information. So don't ask those types of questions if that information is public knowledge and posted on the website. It showcases to the recruiter and or hiring manager that you've done your research by kind of having this knowledge already well in advance. So when you speak to them, you could say, I researched this position, I saw that it was posted at X salary. I'm very interested. And that will showcase to the recruiter that you've done your research on the position.
All right, thank you, Lourdes. So now we always get this question, and we tell anyone that we're working with that when an employer says, does anyone have any questions? Please say yes. Okay, you want to always have a couple of questions to be able to ask them. And the good thing is that you don't always have to memorize them. You can have them on a nice little notepad. So here are a couple of great questions. If you're here participating with us, I would suggest now you can always pull out your phone and take pictures of this. So one great question, how would you describe the company culture? So let's say that you didn't really get a chance to research, right? Or you got into a space and you met this employer not familiar with the company. You can ask them this. Describe the company culture? Remember, finding the right space to work in, environment and culture is important. There's a saying that we're at our job more than we're at our homes. So we always encourage everyone to make sure that you find the right fit, right? As the employers are looking for the right fit for them, it's vice versa. What would you suggest be the best way to apply for a position at your company? Lourdes and I love this question. Why? Because working with employers, we know that they have various preferences for how to apply for a position, but they're also using so many different platforms. So this is a great way to make sure that you're using their preferred way to apply with them, as well as also we're going to discuss later, so follow up. Are there opportunities for future growth? Majority of the time, we're looking for a company that is going to invest in us, right? In us through professional development and also through providing almost like a career ladder growth, right? So this is a great way that if you're looking for that company to be able to invest in their employees, ask this question. What is the number one thing that you look for when evaluating a potential candidate? Sometimes we may think it's one thing, but they may be looking for a specific skill, experience, personality, passion. How often do interns go on to working for the company after completing the internship? This is a great question for anyone that may be either looking for an internship or applying for an internship. Because a good portion of the time after the internship, you may really love the company, the culture, right? So you want to know, is there a way that if I successfully complete this internship, could that turn into a more permanent position? And last but not least, what is the best way to follow up with you if I have any additional questions? We always encourage anyone and our students that we're working with or participating in career fairs, ask what's the best way to follow up, right? If it's through a phone number, email, LinkedIn, but you never know when you're going to have questions, or let's say that you've completed everything that they've asked you to complete, and then they said, make sure to follow up with us afterwards. Well, if you don't know how to, you're not going to be able to do that. So again, always make sure that you have at least a couple of questions. As Lourdes said, preparing in advance and doing your research will help you to have questions that are not as broad, a lot of times much more specific to those individual companies that you will be connecting with. And last but not least, the career fair is over. You probably thought, oh my God, I've made it, but your work is not done yet, right? So after the career fair, especially if you've had some meaningful, amazing conversations and you found some great opportunities, you want to make sure that right away, we say max 72 hours, that you are sending out a thank you email or note. Some people are still into writing personal notes. I think that's wonderful. But if not, emails or even sending a message through LinkedIn. And the sooner the better, because a lot of times these recruiters and hiring managers, they're going to several different career fairs, right? So you want to go ahead and send them a little thank you, remind them of where you met them, who you were, and the position that you're applying to. Also, if you have not done so yet, connect with them via LinkedIn. This is also a great way that when you connect with them, you can send them a message of who you are, again, where you met them and what you're interested in. Apply for the jobs and internships. Sometimes we may do some research, but we may go to a company that we were familiar with and find out about an amazing job there. So don't wait too long. Sometimes students say, oh my God, I didn't get to apply, I'm applying now. It's 3 weeks later. It could be possibility that the position already has been filled. And last but not least, this is one of the most important ones, be patient. Lourdes and I always tell everyone we cannot move the needle fast for the employer side. So you want to make sure that after you've done every single step, you give that employer some time. For some employers, it can take up to a month for them to turn on the full recruitment process and then to make that final decision. But again, you don't want to stalk them or be like, keep calling them. If you give them some time, just wait for them to get back with you.
Kathy and Lourdes, thank you so much for this wealth of information. I know that I have a few takeaways that I will be using in my personal and professional time with our virtual career fair and going forward. But we do also have quite a few questions for you both in the chat. So I'm going to start by reading the first one. Our attendee asks, how do I know if I'm a good fit for the position and or the organization?
So I would say carefully review the job description and the qualifications of the position to determine if your experience, your strengths align with the organization and what they look for in a candidate. And take into consideration if the area of expertise that you have or your background fits the specific needs of the role and or the organization.
Thank you. And following up on that, they asked, do you recommend applying for a position even if I'm not a perfect match?
I would say it can definitely be sometimes worthwhile, even if you're not a perfect match. You may have some transferable skills, experience, and qualities that can contribute immensely to the organization and or the position. It's also important to keep in mind that you need to be realistic about your qualifications and the requirements of the role. So I would say don't let a lack of perfection deter you from applying for positions that genuinely may be of interest to you.
So building off of that, how many of the criteria in the job description should I meet if I'm going to apply, right? Can I apply even if I don't meet any? How would I make that case? Or what would you recommend?
To me, if there's 10, I would say qualifications they look for and you only need 2, that may not be the one. And we get that sometimes, that you may not be the fit for it, right? Because you also don't want to be walking into an environment or a space or a position that you're not qualified for. You're not going to be set up for success. Now, if you're looking at 10 and out of the 10, 5, 6 of those or 7, you're like, I've had this experience or I've had very similar or transferable skills that I can use for that, then we'll say go for it. Lourdes and I know there's some companies that they go line by line. There are very few that they look for exactly what they list on there. If it's certain platforms or programs, they do. But there's others that really look at transferable skills. So when they're looking at your resume, that's why it's important to use those really good, like kind of those speaking the same language on there. They're like, okay, well, for example, if someone worked at Hilton, they use OnCue, right? And then Marriott uses a different platform, right? But it's the same. They like the fact that the candidate is already familiar with using a hotel operation platform. So it's just a matter of them learning. They still value that. So I would say kind of if you meet more than half, I would say go for it. Like Lourdes said, it doesn't have to be perfect fit for it at all.
That's great. And I think that also demonstrates that you want to grow in your role and learn some things. So I think that's fantastic advice. One of our attendees asked, is it okay to have different personal photos for all of my social media platforms, including LinkedIn? How professional should my photo be for my LinkedIn page?
That is a very good question. I guess I would say having different personal photos for various social media platforms is very common. Different platforms cater to different audiences and different purposes. But when it comes to your LinkedIn profile, it's essential to maintain a very professional image that aligns with the platform's purpose, which is a professional networking website, right? So I would say for LinkedIn, your LinkedIn profile photo should be clear, professional, and preferably a headshot that features your face. Avoid using any group photos or selfies, and anything that could be unprofessional. So that would kind of be my 2 cents. And I don't know if Kathy would like to jump in on that or add anything to that.
I was just gonna say, just be careful still with social media, because there's private, there is and there's not. We have seen times that things have been shared with us because sometimes we do make friends or have contacts, let's say in Instagram with like deans or other people. So just taking consideration of what you're posting there, But I think it is a good idea to kind of separate the two. And as Lourdes says, the purpose of LinkedIn is a more networking, social platform. But again, just still be careful with what you're putting out there as well and on your other personal ones.
I think that's great advice. One of our attendees asked if their elevator pitch will change based on the position they're applying for.
So it's kind of a summary of who you are, what you do, and what you can offer. So obviously that last part, what you can offer, what are you offering to that organization for that position, right? So kind of when customizing your elevator pitch, you want to highlight your relevant skills and your experience. Show your passion, your enthusiasm, and personalize your approach based off of the company and or organization that you're speaking to.
Thank you. And I know you mentioned about lying down on your bed and being part of a virtual career fair and how that's a no-no. I can certainly agree with that. One of our attendees asked, how important is attire for a virtual career fair?
So I'll take that one. It's if you're going to be participating in a career fair that you have the opportunity to engage so they can actually see your video or yourself there. I would say it's still professional. So I think back in the Zooming days during the pandemic, it was like whatever's waist up, pajamas on the bottom, but you can be in professional suit on top. But I always suggest too that I feel like when you're dressed for the occasion, you feel better. You move a little bit different, right? So I suggest that you may not want to be in a full suit, but definitely having a blazer on top, still look professional. Your hair is neat, you're well dressed. It not only affects, how your overall look is for the employer, but you feel better, you feel good. You feel like more like you're putting, you're ready to show, you're ready to display yourself better.
Thank you so much. So going back to the social aspect of all of this, the social media aspect of all of this, do employers look at other social media sites when people apply for jobs? If so, what suggestions would you give people who are preparing for a job search?
Yeah, so my role at FIU is to work with our corporate partners and hiring our students. And in having those conversations with them, yes, some employers may sometimes look at their social media sites and platforms. It's not really a universal practice. Some employers may review those platforms to gain insights on candidates, maybe personality, their professionalism. So I would say some suggestions or tips that I would give to students and or candidates is review your privacy settings. Take the time, review those settings, adjust them accordingly to see who can see your posts, your photos, and other content that you may have. Showcase your professionalism, and just make sure you have your LinkedIn profile updated as well too, since that is a professional networking platform that some employers may use to find their candidates. So just make sure that is up to date and obviously has the most professional information on there.
Thank you so much, Lourdes. In terms of the interview, Kathy, I think you were talking about this. How soon should they follow up or contact the employer about the position? And how do they know what is the right amount of time to give them versus following up too quickly or waiting way too long afterwards?
So it's kind of almost like a little play of ear, right? So if they're at a career fair and some employers, when they find the right candidate, they're going to tell them right away, I need you to apply tonight. Okay. And as soon as you apply tonight, please send me an email. So if they give you the specific instructions, that means, and please follow them because there's a lot of other candidates and they're probably trying to fill that position quickly. Actually, it happened at our previous career fair that like a bunch of our students were coming to us saying they already booked me for my interview tomorrow. So if they give you those instructions, you can do it, right away and follow up with them right away. If you just went ahead, apply for a position, 2 weeks is the magic time, right? After 2 weeks, then you can go ahead and follow up. Because if you start following up right away, it's like 24 hours or 48 hours. You may not have even to give them a chance for them to even settle back down in the office to start kind of, going back through the application process. Like we said, sometimes recruiters are going from one event to the next event, and as though they love someone that's persistent, or very excited for this role, you don't want to come off too strong. So we say 2 weeks is the perfect amount of time.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And then Kathy and Lourdes, our last question is, when it comes to personal branding, is it more about showing the real you, or do you have to kind of create your image on purpose?
I would say personal branding kind of involves both aspects of showing the real you, but also shaping your image to align kind of with your goals and your aspirations. It represent yourself authentically to who you are. And I think authenticity is important. It's an aspect of personal branding. So showcase the real you, but also make sure you sprinkle in your goals and aspirations as well too, and align that with what the organization is requesting and or asking for. And I don't know if you have anything to add, Kathy, to that.
No, I mean, I think that it's important to showcase who you are, right? I think that we tend to do work better, right, when we can be our authentic selves. Obviously, we still have to be professional, but a lot of times when we're working with students, they're looking for a company that they can be themselves, right? So maybe if I have tattoos, I can wear them, right? Or, I have green hair. I don't want to dye it to black, So at the same time, though, there are brands, funny enough, that are evolving and wanting their full, they're willing to accept their candidates just the way they are. They love that. And that's what also the clients love, right? But like Lourdes says, it's kind of like you showing you, but also sprinkling in a little bit of the professional. So besides this is me, this is also what I bring along with my talent, with myself.
I think that's such fantastic advice for our listeners and for all of us, really, is to be who you are, but also make sure that how you want to be perceived is also being recognized and adhered to. And that's what I heard from you. You've given us so much incredible information, from length of resume to what should be on it, to an elevator pitch, to updating and refreshing and making sure that our social media profiles are in line with who we are and what we want to represent, as well as tailoring our offerings to our employers, and then just how to represent ourselves at virtual career fairs. I cannot thank you both enough for your time today. This insight has been invaluable. We appreciate you. And for all of you who joined in, thank you so much for joining us today and for your fantastic questions. And we look forward to seeing you at the next Hospitality Internships podcast, as well as our virtual career fair on March 15th. We'll see you then.
Thanks for joining us at Hospitality Internships, the premier global talent network. Don't forget to check out the links below. Also, be sure to like and comment on this video, and don't forget to subscribe for more upcoming videos and information.